Blake Ashton Kingsfield stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse suite at the Ritz-Carlton in downtown Boston, swirling a glass of 25-year-old Macallan as he watched the city lights twinkle against the darkening December sky. At 31, he had everything he'd ever dreamed of, or at least, everything he thought he'd wanted when he was younger. Black Tech Solutions had just crossed the billion-dollar valuation mark, making him one of the youngest tech CEOs to achieve such a milestone. Yet here he was, celebrating alone. The massive penthouse felt hollow despite its elegant furnishings and the expensive catering spread laid out on the marble countertops. He'd cancelled the formal celebration his board had planned, claiming he wanted something more intimate. The truth was, he couldn't bear another evening of fake smiles and meaningless congratulations from people who only saw him as a success story or an investment opportunity. His phone buzzed again, probably another congratulatory message from someone who wanted something from him. But this time, the name that flashed across the screen made his heart skip a beat. Wesley Hammond, his old college roommate and the only person who still called him out on his BS. "Man, you can't seriously be brooding in that fancy tower of yours tonight," Wesley's text read. "Get your millionaire ass down to the Oak Room. There's someone you need to see." Blake's finger hovered over the reply button. He hadn't been to the Oak Room in years, not since that night. The night everything changed. The night he chose his dreams over his heart. The memory of soft brown eyes filled with tears and disappointment flashed through his mind, making him wince even after all these years. "Not tonight, Wes," he typed back, but his friend's response was immediate. "Trust me, Blake. You'll regret it if you don't come. Some celebrations find you whether you're ready or not." Something in Wesley's tone made Blake pause. In 10 years of friendship, Wesley had never steered him wrong. Even when Blake wished he had, just so he could justify ignoring his friend's advice. He glanced at his reflection in the window, designer suit perfectly pressed, dark hair artfully styled, the picture of success. But his hazel eyes held an emptiness that all his millions couldn't fill. "Fine," he replied, grabbing his coat. "But I'm not staying long." As he stepped into the private elevator, Blake couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. The last time he'd been at the Oak Room, he was a different person, young, ambitious, and foolish enough to believe that success would bring happiness. Now, standing at the summit he'd sacrificed everything to reach, he was starting to wonder if he'd been climbing the wrong mountain all along. The elevator doors closed with a soft chime, whisking him down toward a past he thought he'd left behind. He didn't know it yet, but this night would redefine everything he thought he knew about success, love, and what truly matters in life. The Oak Room hadn't changed in the 9 years since Blake had last walked through its heavy mahogany doors. The same warm lighting cast intimate shadows across dark leather booths, and the polished brass fixtures still gleamed like liquid gold. The familiar scent of aged wood and expensive bourbon wrapped around him like a forgotten memory. Wesley was easy to spot at the bar, his broad shoulders and infectious laugh drawing attention even in the crowded space. But Blake barely noticed his friend. His attention was completely captured by the sound of a laugh he hadn't heard in nearly a decade, a melodic sound that sent shivers down his spine and made his heart race like he was 22 again. Autumn Rivers. She was even more beautiful than he remembered. She sat at a corner table, partially hidden from view, but Blake would have known her anywhere. Her copper-colored hair fell in soft waves past her shoulders, and time had only enhanced her natural grace. She wore a simple black dress that spoke of quiet confidence, so different from the struggling art student he'd known in college. But it was her smile, that radiant, unguarded smile, that made his breath catch in his throat. "You actually came?" Wesley appeared at his side, clapping him on the shoulder. "I wasn't sure you would. What is she doing here?" Blake's voice came out rougher than he intended. "She moved back to Boston last month. She's running the new modern art wing at the MFA. Wesley studied his friend's face carefully. "She's done well for herself, Blake. No thanks to you." The guilt that Blake had buried under years of success and ambition rose up like bile in his throat. He turned to leave, but Wesley's grip on his shoulder tightened. "Don't you dare walk away again," Wesley's voice was low but firm. "There's more you need to know." That's when Blake saw them, 2 little girls, probably around 9 years old, returning to Autumn's table from what he assumed was the restroom. They moved in perfect synchronization, identical down to their matching navy blue dresses and the way they tucked their copper-colored hair behind their ears, exactly like their mother did. The world tilted on its axis. Blake gripped the nearest chair for support, his knees suddenly weak. The timing? It couldn't be. But as he watched the girls settle into their seats, he saw his own hazel eyes looking back at him from 2 identical faces. 9 years, Blake?" Wesley said quietly. That's how long she's been raising your daughters alone. And before you ask, yes, she tried to tell you. But you were too busy becoming a billionaire to answer her calls. The weight of Wesley's words crashed over Blake like a tidal wave. His mind raced back to those months after he'd left for Silicon Valley, when he'd been so focused on his startup that he'd blocked out everything and everyone else. The dozens of missed calls. The emails he'd never opened. The certified letters he'd had his assistant return unopened. Their names are Aurora and Athena, Wesley continued, his voice softening slightly. They're brilliant, by the way. Both already reading at a high school level. Aurora's the artist, takes after her mom. Athena's the little scientist, that's all you. They're the best of both of you. Blake watched as Autumn laughed at something one of the girls said, her face glowing with maternal pride. How many moments like this had he missed? How many firsts had slipped by while he was chasing his dreams of success? I didn't know, he whispered, but the words felt hollow even to his own ears. No, Wesley agreed, but you made damn sure you wouldn't find out, didn't you? The question is, now that you do know, what are you going to do about it? Blake felt rooted to the spot, memories flooding back with overwhelming clarity. 9 years ago in this very bar, he'd made the decision that would alter not just his life, but the lives of 3 people he didn't even know existed. He remembered Autumn's face that night, how she told him about the amazing opportunity she'd gotten at a prestigious art gallery in Boston. How she'd asked him to stay to build their dreams together. Instead, he'd told her about the investors in Silicon Valley. About the millions in seed funding waiting for him. About how this was his one shot at making it big. He'd promised they could make long-distance work, knowing in his heart he was lying. 3 weeks later he'd stopped answering her calls. Now, watching his daughters share a plate of French fries, he saw what his ambition had really cost him. Aurora, the artist Wesley had mentioned, was sketching something on a napkin, her small face scrunched in concentration just like her mother's used to. Athena was carefully arranging her fries in what appeared to be some sort of pattern, possibly an equation, her analytical mind already at work. They're having a small celebration, Wesley explained softly. Aurora won first place in the state art competition, and Athena just took the regional science fair title. Autumn wanted to treat them somewhere special. The irony wasn't lost on Blake. On the night he'd achieved his greatest professional success, he was discovering his greatest personal failure. Does she hate me? Blake asked, his voice barely audible. Wesley considered this for a moment. No, he finally said. That's the thing about Autumn, she's never had it in her to hate. Disappointed? Yes. Hurt beyond words? Absolutely. But she made sure the girls know good things about you too. They know their father is brilliant and driven. They know he creates technology that helps people. They just don't know why he's never wanted to know them. Blake's chest tightened. How do I fix this, Wes? How do I even begin to make this right? Maybe start by not hiding in the shadows like a creeper, Wesley suggested. They deserve more than being watched from across a room. As if on cue, Athena looked up from her geometric French fry arrangement, her sharp hazel eyes scanning the room with curious intelligence. For a brief moment, her gaze met Blake's, and he saw something flash across her face, recognition perhaps from photos she might have seen. She nudged her sister, whispering something that made Aurora look up from her napkin artwork. Autumn noticed her daughter's distraction and followed their gaze. When her eyes found Blake, he watched as emotions chased across her face, shock, pain, anger, and something else he couldn't quite read. She straightened in her seat, instinctively moving closer to the girls in a protective gesture that broke his heart. It was time to face the consequences of his choices. Blake took a deep breath and stepped forward, crossing the distance that represented so much more than just physical space. 9 years of absence. 9 years of birthdays and first days of school. 9 years of 2 little girls growing up wondering why their father had never wanted to meet them. Hello, Autumn, he said softly, his voice steadier than he felt. I think we have a lot to talk about. If you're enjoying this video and want more content like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. That way you won't miss out on any of the amazing stories/videos we have coming up. Your support really helps the channel grow and keeps us bringing you more of what you love. Thank you. Autumn's expression remained carefully neutral, but her fingers tightened around her water glass. Girls, she said, her voice gentle but firm, would you mind giving us adults a few minutes to talk? Aurora and Athena exchanged a look that spoke volumes, the kind of silent communication that only twins could master. Athena gathered her precisely arranged fries onto a fresh napkin while Aurora carefully folded her sketch and tucked it into her pocket. We'll be at the dessert display, Athena announced, practical and direct. Just don't forget you promised us chocolate lava cake, Aurora added, her artistic soul somehow making even that simple statement sound poetic. As the girls slipped away, Blake noticed how they kept glancing back, their curiosity barely contained. He couldn't blame them, he was drinking in every detail of their existence, trying to make up for 9 years of lost moments in mere seconds. Sit, Autumn said, gesturing to the empty chair across from her. Though I have to warn you, if you're planning to disappear again after this, just walk away now. They're not investments you can cash out of when things get complicated. The sharp edge in her voice made Blake wince as he took the seat. Up close, he could see the faint circles under her eyes, carefully concealed but visible to someone who once knew every detail of her face. Single motherhood couldn't have been easy, even with her successful career. I didn't know, he started, but Autumn cut him off. You didn't want to know, she corrected. There's a difference. I tried everything short of showing up at your office in Silicon Valley, which I couldn't do because I was on bed rest with a high-risk twin pregnancy and then raising 2 newborns alone while trying to keep my career alive. Blake felt each word like a physical blow. You're right, he admitted. I was so focused on becoming successful that I made myself unreachable. I thought I was protecting my dream, but I was just being a coward. A billionaire coward, Autumn added, but there was less bite in her tone. The girls know all about your company, you know. Athena reads every article about black tech solutions she can find. She was over the moon when your educational software was adopted by her school. And Aurora? A small smile touched Autumn's lips. She did a portrait of you for her art competition entry. She used a magazine cover photo as reference. It won first place. That's actually what we're celebrating tonight. The revelation stunned Blake into silence. His daughter had won an art competition with a portrait of him, a father she'd never met. The irony was almost too much to bear. I've missed so much, he whispered, more to himself than to Autumn. Yes, you have, she agreed. The question is, what do you plan to do about it now? Because if you're going to be in their lives, it has to be all in, Blake. No more disappearing acts. No more putting business before family. They deserve better than that. Before Blake could respond, a small commotion at the dessert display caught their attention. Aurora had managed to charm the pastry chef into showing her how to plate the chocolate lava cakes with artistic flair, while Athena appeared to be explaining the chemical reaction that made the center remain liquid to an impressed server. They're amazing, Blake breathed, watching his daughters in action. They are, Autumn agreed softly. Despite everything, they really are the best of both of us. As if sensing they were being watched, both girls turned from the dessert display and locked eyes with their parents. After a brief whispered conference, they began making their way back to the table, each carrying a perfectly plated chocolate lava cake. Mom, Athena said as they approached, her voice steady but her hands betraying her nervousness as they gripped the dessert plate. Is this him? Is this our father? Aurora, typically the more expressive of the two, didn't say anything. She just studied Blake's face with an artist's eye, perhaps comparing him to the magazine photo she'd used for her portrait. Yes, Autumn answered simply. This is Blake Kingsfield, your father. Blake felt the weight of their scrutiny as both girls slid back into their seats. He'd faced down venture capitalists and corporate boards, but nothing had ever made him feel more exposed than the frank assessment in those matching pairs of hazel eyes, his eyes. Your educational software helped me learn calculus 3 months ahead of my class, Athena stated matter-of-factly, breaking the tension. The adaptive learning algorithm is brilliant. Did you design it yourself? Blake blinked, caught off guard by this unexpected opening. Yes, I did. Math was always my strongest subject. Mine too, Athena said, a hint of pride creeping into her voice. Mom says I get that from you. I drew you, Aurora interjected suddenly, her artistic soul apparently unable to stay quiet any longer. Not from real life, obviously. From a magazine. You looked sad in the photo even though you were smiling. Is that why you never came to see us? Because you were sad. The directness of the question, delivered with a child's innocent curiosity, knocked the wind out of Blake's lungs. He looked to Autumn for guidance, but she merely raised an eyebrow, leaving him to navigate this crucial moment on his own. No, Aurora, he said finally, deciding that these remarkable girls deserved nothing less than complete honesty. I never came to see you because I was scared. Not of you, of failing you. I thought success meant having the biggest company, the most money. I was wrong. Real success would have been watching you both grow up. But you can watch us grow up now, Athena pointed out with impeccable logic. We still have a lot of growing to do. I'm planning to build an AI that can compose classical music for my next science fair project. And I'm working on a series of paintings about quantum physics, Aurora added, her face lighting up. Mom doesn't really get it, but I bet you would. Blake felt something warm and unfamiliar expand in his chest, pride he realized. Pride and amazement at these two extraordinary girls who had somehow managed to blend his analytical mind with their mother's creative spirit in ways he never could have imagined. I would love to see both of those projects, he said softly, then looked at Autumn. If that would be okay. Autumn studied him for a long moment, then sighed. Girls, why don't you show your father your current sketchbook and project notes? I'm sure he'd be interested. The twins' faces lit up simultaneously, and suddenly Blake found himself surrounded by excited chatter as Aurora pulled out her sketchbook and Athena produced a tablet filled with surprisingly complex coding attempts. As they talked over each other in their enthusiasm to share their work, Blake caught Autumn watching them with a mixture of caution and hope. As Blake pored over Aurora's intricate sketches and Athena's complex algorithms, he noticed something remarkable: the girls were collaborating on their projects. Aurora's artwork wasn't just inspired by quantum physics. It incorporated her sister's mathematical concepts into the very composition. Meanwhile, Athena's music AI used principles from Aurora's color theory to structure its harmonies. See, the golden ratio appears in both the visual composition and the musical intervals, Athena explained, pointing to a particularly detailed page of calculations. And the wave functions create these beautiful patterns that I've integrated into the background, Aurora added, flipping to a stunning abstract piece that somehow managed to make quantum mechanics look poetic. Blake glanced at Autumn, who was watching the scene with misty eyes. They've always been like this, she said softly. Supporting each other, elevating each other's work. They never saw art and science as separate things. Like us, Blake murmured, remembering how their different perspectives had once complemented each other so perfectly. Before he'd forgotten that lesson in his pursuit of success. The girls had moved on to showing him their plans for future projects, but Blake noticed Athena stifling a yawn. A quick check of his watch confirmed it was getting late. We should probably wrap up, Autumn said, ever attentive to her daughter's needs. You both have school tomorrow? Twin expressions of disappointment appeared on the girls' faces. But we haven't even told him about our summer science art camp idea yet, Aurora protested. Or about my theories on improving his software's pattern recognition, Athena added. Blake felt a surge of panic. He couldn't bear the thought of this evening ending, of losing this newfound connection. If it's okay with your mother, maybe we could meet again? Perhaps this weekend? The hope that bloomed on his daughter's faces made his heart clench. They looked to Autumn, who seemed to be waging an internal battle. Saturday, she finally said. The girls have their enrichment classes in the morning, but the afternoon is free. And Blake. Her eyes met his with fierce intensity. Don't make promises you can't keep. I won't, he replied, holding her gaze. Not this time. He turned to his daughters, drinking in their features one last time. I'd love to hear all about your camp idea and your software improvements then. And maybe I could show you both around my lab? If that's something you'd be interested in? You mean the actual Black Tech Solutions research facility? Athena's eyes widened. With the quantum computing lab? And the holographic design studio? Aurora added eagerly. The very same, Blake smiled, already imagining their reactions to the cutting-edge technology. Though I have a feeling you two might end up teaching our engineers a thing or two. As the girls gathered their things, Blake noticed Aurora quickly adding something to her sketchbook. Before she closed it, he caught a glimpse. It was a sketch of all four of them sitting at the table together. Not from a magazine photo this time, but from real life. Here, she said shyly, tearing out the page and handing it to him. So you don't forget about Saturday. Blake carefully folded the sketch and tucked it into his pocket, right next to his heart. I couldn't forget if I tried, he promised. Watching them leave, Blake realized something profound. His billion-dollar celebration earlier had felt empty because he'd been measuring success by the wrong metrics all along. True wealth wasn't in his bank account or his company's valuation. It was in Aurora's artistic vision and Athena's brilliant mind. It was in the way they combined their talents to create something greater than the sum of its parts. It was in the second chance he was being given, one he swore he wouldn't waste. If you're enjoying this video and want more content like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. That way you won't miss out on any of the amazing stories/videos we have coming up. Your support really helps the channel grow and keeps us bringing you more of what you love. Thank you. Back in his penthouse, Blake pulled Aurora's sketch from his pocket, carefully smoothing it out on his desk. The simple drawing captured more than just their likenesses. It somehow conveyed the tentative hope of that evening, the possibility of becoming a real family. His phone buzzed with an incoming call from his COO about an urgent merger proposal, but for the first time in his career, Blake hit decline. Instead, he opened his laptop and began typing an email to his board of directors. It was time for some major changes at BlackTech Solutions. Effective immediately, he wrote, I will be relocating our headquarters to Boston. The Silicon Valley campus can remain as our West Coast division, but my place is here. His fingers hesitated for just a moment before continuing. Additionally, I will be restructuring my schedule to maintain reasonable working hours. Family obligations will be taking priority. As soon as he hit send, his phone exploded with notifications. Board members, investors, and executives all demanding explanations. Blake silenced them all and opened his browser, searching for how to be a good father to daughters. The irony of the tech mogul turning to Google for parenting advice wasn't lost on him. A text from Wesley popped up. You didn't screw it up. I'm impressed. I haven't exactly succeeded yet either, Blake replied. True. But you're trying. That's more than you did before. By the way, Autumn's gallery opening is next month. Might be a good opportunity to show support for both her and Aurora's art. Blake immediately looked up the Museum of Fine Art's upcoming events. The Modern Art Wing's opening was indeed a major event, with Autumn Rivers listed as the curator. He noticed that the student art competition winners would have their work displayed in a special exhibition, including Aurora's portrait of him. His chest tightened at the thought of seeing his daughter's interpretation of him hanging in a major museum. What had she seen in that magazine photo? What had she captured in her prize-winning portrait? The thought of facing that reflection of himself, through his daughter's eyes, was both terrifying and compelling. An idea began forming in his mind. BlackTech Solutions had been looking for ways to integrate art and technology in education. What if? He opened a new document and began sketching out plans for a collaborative project. Something that could combine Athena's AI music program with Aurora's quantum physics artwork. Something that could show them he was paying attention, that he valued both their interests equally. His phone buzzed again, an email from his assistant reminding him about tomorrow's scheduled meetings in Silicon Valley. Blake replied with new instructions. Cancel the flights, reschedule everything that couldn't be done virtually, and start looking for a suitable family home in Boston's suburbs. Something with a lab space for Athena and an art studio for Aurora. As he worked through the night, Blake kept glancing at Aurora's sketch. 9 years ago he'd walked away from love to chase success. Now he understood that real success had found him despite his best efforts to avoid it, in the form of two brilliant girls who somehow combined the best of both their parents. The next few days passed in a whirlwind of activity. Blake's announcement about relocating to Boston had sent shockwaves through Silicon Valley, with tech blogs speculating wildly about his motives. But for once he didn't care about the industry gossip. His focus was entirely on preparing for Saturday. The girls' enrichment classes end at noon, Autumn explained during their phone call to coordinate details. Aurora has advanced studio art at the Creative Youth Center, and Athena takes quantum computing at MIT's youth program. They're taking classes at MIT already? Blake couldn't keep the pride from his voice. Athena tested off the charts in mathematics. They made an exception for her age. There was a pause before Autumn added, She reminds me so much of you sometimes it hurts. The words hung between them, heavy with 9 years of missed moments. I've been thinking, Blake said carefully, about ways to make up for lost time without overwhelming them. I had some ideas I wanted to run by you first. He outlined his plans for the lab visit, including the educational software project that could incorporate both girls' interests. As he spoke, he could hear Autumn's breath catch slightly. You're really serious about this, she said, wonder and wariness mixing in her voice. I am. But I need your help, Autumn. I don't want to overstep or disrupt the amazing job you've done raising them. I want to add to their lives, not complicate them. Another pause, longer this time. They have a school science fair next month, Autumn finally said. Athena's been struggling with some aspects of her AI music project. And Aurora? She's been trying to find a way to make her quantum art interactive. Maybe you could. Yes, Blake said immediately. Absolutely yes. Whatever they need. Just be careful with their hearts, Blake. They're brilliant, but they're still 9-year-old girls. This morning, Aurora added you to her family portrait series. And Athena's been recalibrating her entire project timeline to include your input. The weight of responsibility settled deeper into Blake's chest. I won't let them down. I won't let any of you down again. We'll see, Autumn replied, but her tone was softer than before. Oh, and Blake? Don't wear a suit on Saturday. The girls want to show you their favorite ice cream place after the lab visit. It gets messy. After hanging up, Blake looked around his pristine penthouse with new eyes. The sleek, minimalist space suddenly felt cold and uninviting. Not at all suitable for two creative, energetic 9-year-olds. He opened his laptop and added another item to his growing to-do list. Create kid-friendly spaces in new house, art studio, science lab, and... He paused, realizing he still had so much to learn about his daughter's other interests. The portrait Aurora had drawn at the oak room sat framed on his desk now, his first piece of real family art. Next to it was a printout of Athena's preliminary AI code, filled with innovations that made him wish he could hire her as a consultant, age laws notwithstanding. Both items seemed to watch him as he worked late into the night, not on business deals this time, but on learning everything he could about raising gifted children, supporting young artists and scientists, and most importantly, how to be a father worthy of his daughter's growing trust. Saturday arrived bright and crisp, a perfect December afternoon. Blake arrived at the MIT campus 15 minutes early, pacing nervously outside the youth program building in jeans and a casual sweater. When he spotted Autumn's car pulling up, his heart started racing faster than it had during any investor pitch. The girls burst out of the car with boundless energy. Aurora was clutching a portfolio case nearly as big as she was, while Athena hugged a laptop to her chest. Both wore matching winter coats in different colors, purple for Aurora, blue for Athena, the first sign Blake noticed of how they expressed their individuality. Dad. They called out simultaneously, the word hitting him like an electrical surge. It was the first time they'd called him that. We brought our projects to show you, Athena announced, already opening her laptop as she walked. And I have new sketches of how we could display them together, Aurora added, trying to unzip her portfolio without dropping it. Blake caught Autumn's eye over their daughters' heads. She gave him a small nod, the ghost of a smile playing at her lips. I'll pick them up at 6, she said. Try not to fill them up too much at ice cream, they have dinner with their grandmother tonight. The next few hours were a blur of joy and discovery. In the Black Tech lab, Athena's eyes grew wide at the quantum computing setup, while Aurora gasped at the 3D modeling stations. Blake had carefully prepared demonstrations that combined art and science, showing them how the company's latest projects merged both disciplines. This is like what we do, Aurora exclaimed, watching a visualization of sound waves create abstract patterns on a massive screen. Actually, Blake said, trying to contain his excitement, I was hoping you both might help me with something. He pulled up the proposal he'd been working on. We're developing new educational software that combines visual art with mathematical concepts. I thought maybe you two would want to be our first test developers. The twins exchanged their secret look again, but this time Blake was starting to understand their silent language. Athena's raised eyebrow asked if this was real. Aurora's slight head tilt wondered if they were ready for such responsibility. Their synchronized smiles gave their answer before they spoke. Can we use my AI music algorithm as part of it? Athena asked. And my quantum artwork for the interface? Aurora chimed in. That's exactly what I was hoping for, Blake replied, his chest swelling with pride at their immediate grasp of the project's potential. At the ice cream shop later, a charmingly chaotic place called the Mathematical Scoop, where flavors were named after scientific concepts, Blake watched in amusement as his daughters debated the merits of quantum crunch versus Fibonacci fudge. Mom never gets the references here, Athena confided, digging into her string theory swirl. But she always pretends to understand when we explain them, Aurora added loyally, her fractal fantasy already creating artistic drips down her cone. Watching them, Blake realized something profound. He'd spent years building a technology empire, but his greatest creation had been growing up without him, two extraordinary girls who saw the world in ways he never could have imagined. 1 month later, the Museum of Fine Arts buzzed with excitement for the Modern Wings opening gala. Blake stood in front of Aurora's prize-winning portrait, finally understanding what his daughter had seen in that magazine photo. She'd captured not just his success, but his loneliness, and somehow in the background she'd woven subtle references to quantum physics equations, as if suggesting that science itself was trying to solve the puzzle of his empty life. She has a gift for seeing beneath the surface, Autumn said, appearing beside him in an elegant burgundy dress. Both of them do in their own ways. The past month had transformed all their lives. Blake had found a beautiful home in Brookline with dedicated spaces for both girls' passions. The educational software project had become Black Tech's priority, with Aurora and Athena's innovations already revolutionizing how art and science were taught together. More importantly, he hadn't missed a single one of their weekend enrichment classes or family dinner nights. "Thank you," Blake said softly, "for giving me another chance. For giving them the space to know me." Autumn's expression softened. "You're different now. The girls helped me see that. The Blake I knew 9 years ago would never have rearranged board meetings to attend Athena's science fair presentation. Or spent 3 hours helping Aurora perfect her holographic art installation," Blake added with a smile. "Dad. Mom." Athena's excited voice cut through the crowd. She and Aurora rushed over, both wearing party dresses that somehow incorporated their signature colors. "They're about to unveil our collaborative piece." The piece in question was the centerpiece of the children's exhibition, a stunning fusion of Aurora's quantum-inspired art and Athena's AI-generated music, all powered by Black Tech's newest educational platform. As the crowd gathered, Blake felt his daughter's hand slip into his. "And now," the museum director announced, "we have a unique installation that represents the future of art and science education, created by our youngest contributors ever, Aurora and Athena Rivers Kingsfield." Autumn interrupted softly, making both girls' faces light up with joy. "Their names are Aurora and Athena Rivers Kingsfield." As applause filled the gallery, Blake looked at his family, really looked at them. At Aurora, who saw the beauty in equations. At Athena, who found music in algorithms. At Autumn, who had never let bitterness eclipse their children's need to know their father. He realized that true success wasn't measured in dollars or stock prices, but in moments like these. The installation came to life, filling the space with swirling colors and harmonious sounds that seemed to bridge the gap between art and science, between past and present, between what was lost and what was found. Just like their creators, it proved that the most beautiful things in life come from bringing different worlds together. Later that evening, as the twins excitedly explained their creation to a crowd of impressed museum patrons, Blake turned to Autumn. "I spent 9 years chasing success," he said, "only to find it was waiting for me right here in Boston all along." "Sometimes," Autumn replied, watching their daughters shine, "the biggest successes in life come from our biggest mistakes. We just have to be brave enough to learn from them. The true measure of success isn't in the goals we achieve but in the lives we touch and the love we share." Blake had needed 2 brilliant 9-year-old girls to teach him that money and power mean nothing without family to share it with. His billions couldn't buy him the joy he felt watching Aurora sketch new ideas or hearing Athena explain her latest algorithm. Real wealth, he learned, isn't counted in dollars, it's measured in moments, in laughter, in the way your children's eyes light up when they call you Dad. If you enjoyed this story, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You can also support the channel through super thanks to help us create more heartwarming content like this. Leave a comment below sharing your thoughts on Blake's journey from success to true fulfillment. What do you think was the moment that changed everything for him? Remember, sometimes our biggest mistakes can lead us to our greatest blessings. We just have to be brave enough to recognize them and wise enough to learn from them.